Hi, it's Shaka Hislop, one president of Sure Recently Red Card for another edition of our podcast. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Manisha Tailor and Millie Sian.
This is 25 for 25, a Show Racism the Red Card podcast. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
Two young women involved in sport continue to amaze, smashing glass ceilings along the way. Manisha, Millie, thanks for joining me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you for the invite.
And let me start. Manisha, you're assistant head of coaching at QPR Academy. I'll get to that in a minute. But Millie, I have to start with you. You graduated yesterday?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, graduated yesterday. So I'm feeling quite tired today. Oh, thank you. It was a really nice ceremony. Yeah, I'm glad to have graduated now.
That's absolutely fantastic. From where did you graduate and with what degree?
Yeah, so I went to Nottingham Trent University. I did a 3-year course in broadcast journalism, which slightly touched on sport journalism as well. And I've just graduated with a first, so I can't be happier, to be honest.
Oh, gee, that's wow! You're certainly showing me up here. Congratulations! I'm
absolutely not.
I'm amazed and honored that so soon after graduating, you're sharing a space with me. You're touching on a subject that so much of today's players, youth in today's world have to deal with, and that's online abuse. And while you were a much needed voice in the middle of a lot of hate, I'm sure your own experiences as a journalist has opened you up and put you in the spotlight for some of that same kind of vitriol. Is that something you've experienced? And if so, how have you managed to handle and negotiate that landscape?
Yeah, you're right, Shaka. I think it's one of these things, you're always going to get people that don't agree with what you're saying, don't agree with your opinions, or views your point of view as being wrong. And it was something that I struggled with at first, but the people at Radio Leicester were so good with telling me how to kind of deal with it. And I think it adds another layer being a female, because I read my tweets 20 times over before I actually press send, because I don't want to get a little thing wrong that maybe a male wouldn't get picked up on, but I would get picked up on. And that's just a part, sadly, of being a female in sport, I think. And I think it's something that a lot of females in sport experience as well, which is a sad fact, but it is the case.
It's a sad fact, but if I'm going to say you're raising the bar in that respect, and in so many respects, Millie. So while it may seem burdensome, I think it has a long-lasting effect and impact on journalism across the board. Manisha, let me come to you. Your title, Assistant Head of Coaching at QPR Academy. Talk to me about your path into football. This is a conversation I had with Michael Chopra not so long ago. South Asians aren't well represented in football. Yeah, here we are talking about a young lady who's risen through those ranks, and as much as I may try to deny, it's as much as it's been a little bit of a while since I stopped playing. Even when I was in the midst of my own professional career, or coming to the end of my own professional career, there weren't that many coaches of color. Yeah, here you are representing not just your gender, not just your community, but in a way that I think has been missing for the game so long. And surely that comes with hurdles, that comes with setbacks. So talk to me about how you got involved in the game, just to start with, some of your progression to where you are right now, and some of those hurdles that may be unique to your own journey.
So I grew up in a time where there were very few opportunities for girls to play football, and very few South Asian girls who played football. But I loved playing football, and I come from a sporty family. So my twin brother and I were these 8-year-olds in the early 80s who just played. And the great thing about sport, as we know, is it's such a universal sport. It's such a universal thing that, you know, a universal language that anybody can connect with, you know, regardless of any individual difference or protected characteristic. So early on, to be honest, I didn't think I was different. I didn't feel any different either. And I've always grown up in a very multicultural part of North London. And in some respects, perhaps I also think was me and my brother sheltered from some of those hurdles early on, because it didn't affect us directly. And it was only as I got a little bit older, and when I mean a little bit older, I mean going into year 6, then going into secondary school, year 7, where at that time you couldn't play mixed football. And I suppose that's when I started to ask questions early on in, am I different? Mainly, am I different being a girl who likes football more than anything else? Because again, I always felt as though I was included when it comes to being South Asian. I didn't notice anything different. And the biggest difference was that there were very few girls who played football. Now, as some of the years went on, my mum and I had continued to have conversations. And some of those conversations, and even to be honest, early on, were around being a girl, you know, but also being a South Asian girl. But it didn't dawn on me too much. And it was only as I kind of got a lot older that I started to realize that actually there aren't that many South Asian women or South Asian girls who play football, who are involved in the sport. And because of the lack of opportunities for people like me, but also the lack of access in terms of pathway, because the pathway as we see now for the female game certainly wasn't there in the 80s. So I very much ended up in recreational football and grassroots football, and realized that I'm probably never going to be a player, and that maybe was never going to be in my lifetime. Even though I actually did go on trial to Barnet, which is like my kind of claim. Got into Barnet as a youngster, but it was hard for my mum because of commitment. You know, I think and Shaka, you'll know this, that, you know, the level of commitment that goes into being able to take your child to training, not just once, but 3 times a week, in the evening, on the weekend, you then have games on a Sunday. That is a big chunk of time. And then because there was me and my brother, that was a definite, how are we going to logistically do this? But the other thing was around the fact that she did not see visible role models. And that was a really big thing. And that got me to in my later life start thinking about that why is that the case? And that's when I started to ask those questions. And I went into teaching as a primary school teacher because I didn't know that roles in football existed, because you only know what you know. And it's only when people come into your life as guides or mentors and so on, who are from that industry, who then let you know that, do you know you can become a coach? Do you know that you can also go into education and so on? And my career change really came in 2011. So by that time, I'd trained as a head teacher, qualified, been working in various schools in different boroughs for 10 years. To be honest, had no ambition to work in football full time. And again, didn't know that it would be a viable route. However, was able to connect, which goes back to, I suppose, Millie alluded to in terms of, you know, being a pest, that because I had this passion and love through my brother, that I stayed connected with football and was able to use football as a tool to help children with numeracy and literacy, and did lunchtime clubs, after school clubs, but also connected with people in the game, one being Rachel Yankee, who was crucial in the early part of my coaching career. And then as time went on, there were many other mentors that came into my life. And one of the key things was the fact that what they saw was passion and drive, but what they saw was transferable skill set. And if I was to fast forward, that became pivotal to me get in the role that I'm in now. And look, I worked in the women's game, and I worked at Middlesex at the Girls Centre of Excellence, and I had numerous grassroots and community roles and experiences in between. But the key thing was around finding a mentor, connecting with people who are in the game, who are willing to take you under their wing. The other key thing in terms of being able to overcome some of those challenges, because it definitely has not been a walk in the park, particularly when I transitioned from grassroots, from the female game into the men's professional game, perceptions. So perceptions around me not having played the game as a pro, and what that brings. Perceptions around stature. So I'm only 4'9.5", so I'm quite small in stature, and perceptions around people thinking I'm a lot younger in age, but also in experience than what I am. So people perceiving you as not even having life experience or experiences in other areas. And then perceptions around gender, being female, and then you've got the added layer of being South Asian. So there were all these things that you are getting judged before you even put your foot in through the door at the training ground. So another big thing that really helped me along the way was a life experience, which taught, and that was when my twin brother, developed mental health problems when we were 18, and I all of a sudden became a young carer with my family. And what that's done over more than like 2 decades, because he needs absolute one-to-one care, and our life took a 360 turn, was that when things in your life change and you've got extreme sudden change and it's a negative change, you have to find something within yourself that's either going to make you or break you. And I almost went through this rocky road of, am I going to finish uni? Can I cope? Am I mentally in a good place? And the answer really was no, I'm not in a mentally good place, but I need to be able to finish it. I need to do it. And what I then found was football gave me some positivity, because it helped me reconnect with my brother. And that's why football, for so many people, for many of us, is so important, because it's not just about being a player or playing. It's so much more than that in terms of the connection, the mental health side, in terms of positivity and relationships and social interactions that you can have, and all these things that it gives you. It makes you feel good. But the adversity, and being in that adversity since 1998, has taught me to be adaptable and versatile. And one of the key things Chris Ramsey said to me when I came in was, you're going to need to learn the game. But it's not just about the knowledge of the game. You're going to need to learn how to navigate your way within the fraternity, within the landscape of men's professional football. And he helped me use the analogy of a school alongside it. And I go back to that mentor, that the mentoring has been key. The versatility and being adaptable has also been key, because there are challenges. And I think when we come later in the conversations, we'll probably bring up some of those challenges. So you have to have a way, and you have to have an array of tools to be able to overcome them. Fortunately, I've got some great mentors and allies that are helping me along the way to kind of sustain my path wherever that might go later on.
Manisha, you said something there that really caught my ear. You spoke about not having any visible role models. Do you see yourself in that role now?
I didn't earlier, and I think I've almost fought with that idea, purely because it's a lot of burden to carry. Because what you don't want is the whole community to be judged based on your actions, because for me that would be wrong. And what I started to do was work with people to help me reframe that thinking, which was actually accepting and recognizing that by the very nature of being in the position of influence that I'm in, yes, and I accept that, and I'm also accepting that actually that carries responsibility. And I think that part for me is more important than anything else, because it's all very well being in the role, and I'm grateful for being in the role that I'm in, but it's what do I do and why am I doing it? And for me, ultimately, it is about how can we create cultural change using our position of influence. Because in order to help change, you need voices that are willing to be open and willing to speak about some of these issues.
And Millie, let me come to you. Similarly, there is some example of South Asians and South Asian women involved in sport, but still a largely underrepresented demographic. Is there anybody that you look to for that example? Are there mentors that you have been able to call on as you pursue this fairly unique challenge of your own?
Yeah, I think for me, there were certainly people, and are still certainly people that I look up to. I'd say, Rashmi Chowdhury, she is an absolute pioneer in terms of if we wanted to just focus on South Asian journalists and sports journalists. And, the job that she's gone on to do is absolutely phenomenal. And then you've got people like Shabnam Yunus Jewel, who does a lot of the soccer content for BBC Sport as well. So there were certain people that I could look up to, but, I also looked to the likes of Manisha. I don't know if you knew that, Manisha, but I've been following Manisha for years on Twitter, just following her journey, because even though we're from two different spectrums, so Manisha's very much in coaching and kind of player coaching, and I'm a journalist, our two worlds kind of still collide because we're both within kind of the sports industry. And I suppose that actually highlights probably the lack of it as well. So I had to go out and search for people like Manisha, and Rashmi is in a really privileged position where she is front and center now, so she was quite easy to find. But you then start looking a bit deeper. So when I started at Radio Leicester, maybe I expected there to be another female there, but quite quickly I learned that in the sports team they'd never really had a female for a number of years. So going into that environment was quite nice, actually. It was nice to be able to bring something completely different, and I think they really embraced that as well, which was nice. And then you go to BBC Sport and there's a lot of South Asians behind the scenes, but not enough, in my opinion. I think we focus on diversity, and there's diversity in certain areas, but maybe diversity in terms of South Asian inclusion isn't particularly looked at. But I think that comes with its challenges as well. Sometimes when I tell people what I do, and it can just be strangers, I've never had it in the workplace, but just strangers, and they say to me, oh, you're in such a good position because you're young, you're a female, and you are South Asian. And it's kind of a thing of, well, why does being South Asian make me in a better position than somebody else? And you don't want as proud as I am about my ethnicity, I don't want that to be the reason that people think that I'm in the role that I'm in. I'm there because I'm good at what I do. And I think that also brings another layer where it's kind of, you almost, I don't know if it's just my perception or if Manisha feels similar or yourself, but I've always felt like since I started working that I kind of had something more to prove, because I am a female and I am South Asian, and you don't see South Asians playing sport and things like that. And I always feel like I have to prove extra than what somebody else might have to do. But that could just be my own perception, but it's something that I always find myself constantly doing, and it's just something that I find makes me feel comfortable with going that extra mile all the time.
And is that I'm not sure cliche is the right word here, but you do feel that pressure that you have more to prove than the next person. And how has that affected your approach? How has that affected your voice in the media?
I think that's part of the reason why I looked to get some experience whilst I was at university. It wasn't something a lot of people at my university really did. There were a few people that were really good at what they did, and they went and did kind of work placements and things like that. But when I wasn't at university, or if I was at university in the morning, for example, before midday, I would then travel back to Leicester to start work at 1 o'clock at Radio Leicester. And I didn't ever see anybody else that was doing that or putting that much effort in. But I think that came from a place of, I need to work hard now whilst I'm young, because it might take me 10 years to break into the industry. I didn't know how long it would take me, because again, you only see a select few people of your skin color, your age, that's a female, that go into this industry. So for me, sport journalism was always where I wanted to be. I didn't ever think it would be possible, but then I'm where I am now. But I'd like to think that that's because of hard work and not through anything else.
Manisha, Millie said something there that made me think about a conversation I had with Les Ferdinand not too long ago. Les, of course, just stepped down as director of football at QPR. He was the only director of football of colour in the 92 professional clubs in English football. And I remember speaking with him, and on the back of an interview that Ian Wright did, where Ian said that Les had to be outstanding. Otherwise, another man of color won't get that opportunity. And Les agreed. Les said he felt that pressure. So here Millie talking about that pressure in her own role as a journalist, I can't help but feel that you must feel the same, given the uniqueness of all that you do and all that you represent.
No, I agree. And I've said it to Les before, I've said it to Chris as well. And Chris has actually said similar in terms of his position as a black man also. And, you know, what Millie said around the fact that you constantly feel as if you have to be more qualified. So, you know, that proving part in my head, and it doesn't make it right. But for me personally, just like, you know, like with Millie, I constantly feel I have to be more qualified. I have to go out there, and it's not enough just to have the A license and the Advanced Youth Award, even though those, you know, it's great to have those qualifications. I also have to have X, Y, and Z. So how else can I upskill myself? What else, you know, what else can I do? Then we talk about, you know, experiences. So, okay, brilliant. I'm working across the 9s to 16s. I come in at 10 o'clock. And essentially, I don't need to, but I will come in 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I then will work throughout until 9, which is because my role is 9s to 16s, right? And it's a schoolboy. I work with the schoolboys, and our academy in the evening is part-time. But again, to feel as though that I have to be better, I need, you know, I want to know the players across the whole development continuum. I want to be seen as more credible. I need to upskill myself in terms of knowledge and understanding of the game. But I've also spoken with our PDP coaches like Micah Hyde and Paul Furlong around, even recently, around the fact that they feel equally as black coaches, that they have to keep getting the next qualification. They have to prove, they have to keep getting more, and that actually having the same as everybody else just seems like it's not enough. And I'll go back to what Millie said again around the fact that we've got an added layer of also gender and being female. And when you are one of few already with regards to race and ethnicity, and then you put actually you're also a female who then is then equally one of very few, that just poses so many more challenges. And it, you know, I go back to the being able to withstand that requires a lot of resilience, and resilience, I think, is used quite frequently. But having that level of resilience where you can overcome that level of challenge and adversity every day of your life, I think is really tricky, particularly when you're also expected to just maintain a certain level of temperament.
Manisha, let me ask about Hannah Dingley at Forest Green, who caretaker manager, but League Two professional club. Um, Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion around that, a lot of response, both positive and negative. But how do you see her appointment? How impactful is it for equality in the game?
I think it's extremely important if we are to inspire young women and girls to believe that they can achieve anything it is that they wish to achieve within the game. Being credible, being this visible role model, being qualified also, and hopefully what that does is that positive story can inspire other females from all walks of life to think, wow, if Hannah can do that, and then you've got Lydia Bedford coming in at the under-18s at Brentford, and many other females that we know, like Hope Power, Emma Hayes, at Chelsea, and Shelley Kerr worked in the men's game, before, earlier on in her time as well. That there are many trailblazers across the board for women in football, and I think that long may these stories continue because we need them. And I think having those positive conversations and sharing them are really key to inspiring other people.
Let me ask this, Manisha, something that has come up quite recently. You heard Delhi talking about his own mental health challenges as a player and his struggles and how he coped or struggled to cope at times. And I know mental health is something that's close to you. You spoke about it, your twin brother Mayur, and his own mental health issues and how you as a family have had to deal with that and support him. Where has the game failed some of those players? I guess the question that where can the game can be better, and to your brother's example, where can the game continue to be a solution?
So I think in terms of where the game, as we know, has failed many, is that the level of support around mental health structurally has not been there. Having said that, I think there has been recognition around that, but what we're having to do is play catch up. So where there's been recognition with the Premier League, the EFL, and other governing bodies around this is what best practice looks like. Therefore, if we are saying that we want to develop players who are not just technically rounded and versatile, but are mentally adept and adaptable, in order for that to happen, you have to be able to have a program that is holistic and cohesive of the whole child or the whole player. So now we do have player care departments. We do have individuals who are coming into roles. That's only happened recently, where more clubs are, where actually it's a requirement. So you're having to play catch up, one with regards to the recognition of actually this stuff's really important, because in order for a player to perform at a level that we're asking for, versatility is not just about versatility with regards to technique. And you'll know that, better than anyone. That it's so much more than that. The mental capabilities within the game, I think, far outweigh anything else, because you might be a good technician. If you can't maintain temperament and you're not a good decision maker, the technique just goes out the window and it becomes unuseful. So now that there is, like I said, recognition, you've got more people coming into roles with player care. You've got psychologists who are being employed. That will then look different across how money's been deployed. So in some clubs, you may have full-time psychologists who work right across the development continuum, whereas with clubs who, as we know, may not have that finance, may have psychologists who predominantly work with the full-time players and not necessarily the part-time players.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for us then to see change, we're talking about change that needs to be radical. But if these strategies are only being deployed more recently, change is going to happen over time.
Mm-hmm.
But like the example that you've alluded to, and many other examples, that sadly children and players will fall through the net. You know, I was listening this morning, and one of the things, and I just thought that is just so important, that was said was that the importance of actually having the psychologists, having people who are trained, because yes, it's you've got the coaches, and we talk about the coach has the most contact, right, with the players. So one is about upskilling coaches with regards to being able to notice behaviors, notice change. But you've also got the other aspect of the psychologists and it, people working together. I do think it's got better. I will say that I do think it's got a lot better. I just think in terms of change, we're asking for something to be a little bit more rapid, and I do believe it needs to be rapid. I do think that we need radical change in that space.
I want to close with one final question to both of you, and Millie, I'll start with you. I'll start by saying there's a saying: if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. let's make God laugh. What's next for you, Millie?
Oh, that is such a difficult question. God, you know, to put someone on the spot, right? At the moment, I'm doing more digital stuff, but in the future, I'd love to be somewhere commentating, or even reporting from a ground on a match day, because I think that's where I belong deep down. And I'd just like to be able to do more of this as well, and to show people that they can do it, and that there is the support in workplaces that everybody kind of looks for. Because before going to the BBC, maybe I wasn't sure if they would have that support, but they really do. And I think that's quite important to put out there for people, because if you don't know when you're going through school that this sports journalism route is an option, as a South Asian person, you're never going to know, and you're never going to do English. You might do maths instead, or something like that, which probably won't help you in journalism, to be honest. So I think it's just about kind of getting the word out there that don't give up on your dreams. If you like sport, you like sport. You don't have to be in all the teams. I mean, I'm quite sporty by nature as well. I know Manisha said that earlier, but you don't have to be sporty by nature. If it's something that you're passionate about, there's no reason why you can't do it. Just because you don't see, South Asian players running about on the pitch in the Premier League doesn't mean that you can't work within that industry, because that's got nothing to do with you. But hopefully gradually, as journalism takes off and as coaching takes off, then the players will start coming through, and people will start seeing more faces like mine and Manisha's on the pitch. And I think that's kind of the example that we kind of have to set now.
And to you, Manisha, I'll put that same question to you. Now, let's make God laugh. Tell them your plans.
To continue my coach education, most definitely, and be the best coach that I can be. Think that the stage that I'm at in my career and my life, to be able to transition into senior football. I love the role that I'm in, but I love the contact with the players that I have. And people have said to me, would you ever consider moving across to the women's game? And my answer has always been, players are players. And it's not about, and I continue to actually volunteer outside of QPR with Maccabi, with the girls, and I took them to the World Games, and represented GB only last year. And I have continued to have this real passion, being female, like Millie, to empower young women and to work with girls, which leads me on to actually, you know, yes, absolutely. And I think everything's about opportunity, right? That I'm in a fantastic environment through opportunity, through allyship and through mentoring. And where there are opportunities, most definitely, because I think that the role modeling piece and the visibility piece, what you said earlier on, you know, in the conversation, and Millie said it as well, is so key, that I feel I have a responsibility to use my position and influence. And I think how important and incredible would that be? So most definitely, being able to impact not just the greater game, but the female game, and be that visible role model for South Asian women and young girls.
Thank you, Manisha. Thank you, Millie. I have to say, ladies, I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time, and it's been everything I hoped it would be. It's just a couple of things. One, you both kind of spoke about your journeys in, or how you managed to crack that doors by being a pest, which is something, I guess, culturally, I sympathize with. Being from Trinidad and Tobago, that's exactly how I would describe it. But I guess in today's world, we have to say we are advocating for ourselves. Is how it would be phrased. But I totally get it, and I think it speaks volumes to your efforts. It speaks volumes to your own self-belief. I also understand the sentiment around, while you're in the job, maybe you don't see yourself as a role model. You're just trying to be the best coach or best journalist that you can be, without maybe truly appreciating the impacts that you're having on a wider community, on a wider world. I can say with absolute certainty that there will be young girls who neither of you will ever meet that will be positively impacted by this conversation, by the example that you continue to set. I can say as an absolute certainty, there's at the very least one old ex-footballer who has been impacted by both of your efforts and how you represent yourselves and your determination to change the game. Thank you for that. I'm going to bring this to a close and only say again, thank you very much to you both for all that you do, for sharing this space with me, and for continuing to advocate for yourselves, for your community, for your gender in the way that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.